everybody. Public comments, do we have that?
Ken, prayer.
Thank you, Kim. Father, we come before you today to give you honor and praise.
You're worthy of praise. You're the source of all that is good. You are the source of all our blessings. Thank you for every gift that we have been given. We thank you for the opportunity to come and gather together this day.
We ask for your hand of blessing on this meeting. We ask that you would guide and direct our meeting so that it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals this day. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Stanford, comments on deconsolidation?
Yeah, many questions I had with the deconsolidation have been answered by the very recent appearance of the deconsolidation plan. It looks like it was released at noon today. I haven't had much time to read through all of it. But I appreciate you guys putting that out now, and we have something to work with. But grokking the plan from the whole document is difficult because it's a lot of data. And I was just going to suggest maybe a simple table in an appendix that takes the district before and the two districts after and compares certain statistics like total square miles, taxes taken for education in those districts, population, number of students, square feet of existing school buildings, total length of bus routes, things like that would someone could look at a glance and get a good feeling for the weight and the distribution of those various factors. And then I also would love to see maybe adding to the meetings, if you have time, when you have a lot of data being given, to have like a feedback session and at the end where people can, while things are fresh in their mind, can give you a little bit of feedback on what they're thinking from what they just witnessed. And that's all I had to say.
That's it. All right, moving on to consent agenda.
So Chairman Dunn, or Vice Chairman Dunn requested some changes on the minutes, so I have those for you.
Thank you. Sorry for the last minute.
So they are highlighted for you guys to read before you approve the consent agenda.
I'm going to open up a can of worms here, but do we have any discretion on when a patron or someone talks on a subject, whether we include that in the minutes or not? Do we include everybody that speaks? Do we select? I mean, how does that work? It's just at our discretion?
Tracy?
I don't know how that works.
How do they normally do it? Like public session? Or is this?
Typically, the minutes I've seen is just discussion ensued. It doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't clarify unless it's a hearing. A hearing, you would. Today's hearing, by the way, will be recorded, and the whole audio recording will be kept as documentation of the minutes because finding somebody to type that fast is more difficult.
Yeah, I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. Well, the only thought I have is, again, I understand the difficulty in trying to write down whatever, but at the same time, if we had some reference to who it was and, just subject of what they addressed, that to me would be helpful.
I mean, obviously, more detail's better.
Yeah. No, to answer your question, I think it's discretionary if it's on topic of what was being discussed and it's allowed. which in this case it was, then I think it can be if it's one, helpful and also germane to the subject, so.
Yeah. And I guess we can just use it at our discretion as time goes on.
Yeah, right.
It'll be fine. Any more comments on those minutes? Have a motion to approve the consent agenda, the full consent agenda, or just the minutes?
No, consent agenda.
Oh. Do we have a motion? Or do you want to comment
Yeah, I'll make the
first?
motion to approve the consent agenda as reflected on the agenda for today.
I'll
Do-
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Or not? Reports, superintendent reports.
As my format for my report is always going to be on my 3 goals, and so the first goal is joy, bringing the joy back in learning and teaching and living in Mountain View School District. And some of the work that we have done this month to accomplish that goal, our administrators have been in the classrooms and they're doing observations and providing feedback immediately to teachers. Feedback is growth. Feedback is how we grow, and doing that early and often. Research shows it provides job satisfaction as well, because we all want to know where we stand and how we're doing. Lots of focus on our Facebook about the really good things and that students are involved in our schools, and patrons are noticing that and appreciating it. I have had patrons stop me and comment about, oh, that was cool that the kids went and watched whatever post, and so that's nice, and it's good to have our patrons knowing about these really amazing opportunities that kids are having. Notified, I believe it was yesterday, that Grangeville High School was awarded an art grant from the State Department. I think Amanda is going to tell us more about that in her presentation. And then every single one of our schools now has a student recognition program of some sort, like Student of the Month or whatever. And so it's nice that every one of our schools are now recognizing students who are doing well for various activities or various things. My next goal is to develop procedures and practices to promote consistency. My goal is that when I leave, things continue, not things continue my way, but that those structures and practices continue. We can always grow and improve those, but it helps us not be quite as bumpy when that happens. So we now have a comprehensive vehicle inventory that we didn't have before. Our 10-year plan is a spreadsheet that is huge, and I have Ty just downloading years of institutional knowledge into this spreadsheet, and it's growing and growing, but that is one place to have all of that information so that we have some consistency in our purchasing as we move forward. We have a mentorship guide and mentorship programs and expectations in every building. Any teacher who is new to the district has a building mentor. Anyone who is new to teaching has a mentor that works with them in the new to teaching. So a building mentor is just going to help you find the coffee maker, the bathroom, where kids, how the procedures of the building. Teachers who are new to the profession need a lot more than that. They need more about how to develop lesson plans and structure plans and where to get resources. And then anyone who's on an alternate authorization has a mentor, because that's part of that program designed by the state of Idaho. And we have clarified and we're developing our evaluation procedures so that we can make them, because if it's not sustainable, if it's so big, then you don't do it. You avoid it, you put it off, and then you don't have quality evaluations. So we want to make them sustainable as possible so that they're quality, because that's how we grow. And then my last one, everyone learning every day, including myself. And I will tell you, this deconsolidation plan has been a learning curve for me. I've spent a lot of time reading the law and communicating with various people about what that law means. I met with Senator Carlson last week. That was very, very interesting to meet with her. I reached out to our representatives immediately when I came to Mountain View, saying, hey, I'm here. I'd like to have a communication with you so that we can dialogue. We're not always going to agree. We both recognize that, but it's okay, because we can talk and dialogue about bills that come up. And then learning for me in the last day or so, we need to jump on those snow day procedures, because this person's going to need to know what that process is, because it's coming whether I want it to come or not. And And then lastly, monthly admin meetings, our admin and our directors get together. We have a rolling agenda, we keep that agenda up and they can post to it. And then now I have folders, so any document that I hand out goes into a folder so that they can access it later, review the agenda and the notes and get the documents that go along with it. Staff spotlight, this month I'd really like to spotlight Lance Ecritt. I don't know if I just said his name right or not, and Roseanne Graham, they're our transportation supervisors. We threw them a pretty big curveball when we approved transportation for activities. That made their lives very different. But they have rolled with it and they've done a really good job. However, they also have some handcuffs that are on them by the federal government in the number of hours that a driver can drive. And so when we have, for instance, we have a bus going to Priest River and back, if they run into construction or if they get a delay, it pushes them up against that maximum number of hours that they can drive. And both Lance and Roseanne have been amazing in brainstorming, like how we can get a driver to the right location, get them their 8-hour reset, and then have them be able to drive. So it's been really good. Has it been perfect? No, it's not going to be. It was a big change. We don't have as many drivers, and it was a big change, but they were awesome in their response. And then additionally, they have a spot inspection next week. The state of Idaho comes in and does just spot inspections. And that spot inspection sounds really small until you start opening up all of those hyperlinks in that document that you have, and it's just pages and pages of things that, you know, everything from your blinkers to the driver's licenses, to the drug tests, to the route plans and manuals. It's amazing. So they're going to be here and in Kuski this next week doing that, and I believe it takes 4 days for that spot inspection. They ride routes and watch for, when they ride the routes, they're looking to make sure that there's an appropriate number of teachers on duty out there, that they've got high-vis vests, and so the students know the rules, that they've done all their evacuation drills. It's not a spot inspection, I assure you. Anyway, kudos to Lance and Roseanne over that.
Is now a good time to say we're hiring bus drivers?
We are always looking for bus drivers, yes.
If anybody knows anyone?
We currently have all of our route positions filled, but we are very short on substitute drivers, and we need those as well as whenever we have an activity, we need drivers for that. So if anybody wants
and
to
it's
learn
like
to drive
a 2-month
bus.
process, but do we pay for that or no?
Carly, that's a good question for you. I believe we do. Parts of it we do, parts we don't.
Like training, yes. And obviously like the getting familiar with the route for subs and whatnot. But.
Okay. Yeah. And I don't know if you've driven a bus or not. I have. It's kind of really cool. They have mirrors everywhere. You can see down the sides. It's amazing. So it's not like you're driving your farm truck anymore. You're driving a bus. So I really encourage anybody who has that inclination to apply. You have to pass a health exam.
We good? Principal reports.
Hi, I'm Jessica Robinson. I am the principal at Grangeville Elementary and Middle School, so we're K through 8. This year we have 508 students. So one of our main focuses is actually our main focus is attendance, because children can't learn if they're not coming to school. So I'm really tracking every single day what our attendance is. It's actually been phenomenal. I'm really excited. For the first month of school, we were at 90% or higher. We are usually in like the 94 to 96 range. That made me super ecstatic for our teachers, especially because they can do their job when we have the littles there and the kids have that consistent learning opportunity. So we've been celebrating that. We have lots of recognition for that at our school. We also got our benchmark testing done. So we have 3 times during the year, fall, winter, spring, where we're benchmarking kids to see their progress. The first one's always a little bit difficult because they're testing kids on end of year requirements. So of course the scores are going to be a little bit lower because they haven't learned it yet. They haven't had the chance. So we have our data. We're going to be looking at our data on Friday tomorrow, and we have questions that teachers are going to be answering about how they're going to move students forward. What do they do for those students who are already high achieving? How do we push them harder? And I'm really going to promote them going deeper into concepts so that they can really have that deep knowledge and understanding and build that love of learning. So we're looking forward to that meeting tomorrow, looking at our data. And yeah, It's going to be a great year. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amanda Bush, and I'm the principal at Grangeville High School. The first thing I'll talk about is our testing, and so we've done what's called the SICA, Shortened Interim Comprehensive Assessment, and we're trying to do it in all 3 areas, and that's new to us at the school, getting that done in all places. So the data you had in your report said that we were at about 175 in different tests. We have them all down to only 11 kids haven't finished yet, so we're almost done with that. It's the first time we've done it with every kid, and so when you look at the data, for example, in science, I want you to consider that the science test is for 11th grade only, so the 9th graders and 10th graders are actually taking the 11th grade test so that they can be ready for it as they approach. So that test specifically, 46% of our students are a level 2, which means approaching. That's great because the majority of those students aren't in the 11th grade. 33% of them, 52 students, are already proficient, and 3% are already advanced. So I feel like science is on the right track, and you can look at the other scores in there. We've had very good attendance. One of the shifts is trying to get kids to stay at school through the course of the entire day instead of trying to take IDLA courses at home. And we've had as high as 95%, and that's pretty good at the high school level. One of the things we're working on tomorrow and in our leadership meetings is to revamp our schedule. So there's more options, and that the schedule isn't a mirror of the previous semester, which really limited our students' ability to have different elective courses. So if you think about it, if we only switch what elective courses are available in the periods, then whenever they have that elective, they're stuck in that period. They can only take a different course in the same period. So it really limited our students, so we've been working on that. If you're interested in my supplemental materials, they're available in the office by teacher's last name. We did get a watercolor and iPad grant from the State Board of Education Rural Art Grant. I wrote the grant, and so we got $3,400 to get some iPads and some watercolor kits. The kids are loving art. It has been the biggest success for us, and so I'm just so happy that we got to add that back into our schedule. We started to honor kids at our school, and so today we had Student of the Month. This month's Student of the Month were Stella Stone, Callie Howe, Emery Beeson, Georgia Hill, and Kinsley Adams. They were nominated by anyone from a coach to a janitor, custodian. Anyone could nominate. Bus drivers, someone they saw being kind or helpful, and so we had 2 seniors win. They tied, and so the vote went out to any staff member, and that's what happened there. We're also doing kind comments and Bulldog Pride cards. So if someone sees somebody doing something exceptional, they can turn in the card in the office. We have lots of cards turned in, and then we'll draw a few names and give out gift certificates to a coffee shop or something like that, so the kids can do that. We started MTSS for the first time at the high school level, and that is exciting. And for the first time in many, many years, we're going to do, we're going to give out script Gs for people who make the honor roll. And so we have, because no one has done this in maybe 6 or 7 years, 120 students who have, in the course of their time at GHS, earned an honor roll letter. And so we're going to be backtracking and doing it for every student from the previous years that are still here. And then hopefully after that we'll be down to a reasonable amount. But it's a big deal, and I want us to get back on track to acknowledge when kids do well academically.
Technology report.
Hi guys. So yeah, there's been a lot of transition in the IT world since I got back. I've been changing everything. I just wanted to specify why I'm doing that and what the purpose is. So I have a goal here to implement and maintain technology solutions that enhance educational outcomes and operational effectiveness while operating within the framework of a consistent, sustainable budget. So my goal is to have the IT department set up so that we're operating within an annual budget, a cyclical budget that carries over year to year, so that there's not crazy surprises. Our devices have a life cycle plan. If not all the pressure is on one individual to know everything that's happening throughout the district, right? But to have operations set up so that someone could step in and know what's going on. So, yeah, that budget thing is definitely in process. Right now, I think where I'm at is that implementation of technology that will actually allow me to do that. So we're up to speed and we can maintain that speed. So, some things we've had going on, one-to-one Chromebook distributions in the high schools. So both Grangeville and Clearwater Valley high schools now have one-to-one Chromebooks, which means every student is given the opportunity to check out a Chrome device that is their responsibility. So through their 4 years of high school, they will have this device, and if they take care of it and they are responsible for their device, they'll be able to graduate with it. Obviously, if there's damage done to the device, then there are implications to that, and that privilege will be taken away. But something that I've noticed, actually Alyssa walked into it today, is I have piles of Chromebooks. And at first it's like, oh wait, are they breaking them? Is this what's happening? But no, actually only like 2 or 3 of the repairs that I'm doing have happened since the one-to-one distribution happened. It's actually students who care about their devices. So when there's a key that's not working, or oh, the camera's blurry on this one, or there's something wrong with it, they're actually saying, hey, I don't want my device to be like this. This wasn't me. Can we get this taken care of? So I'm already seeing kids being responsible, wanting good devices instead of, oh, let's just chuck it back into the cart and some other kid will have to deal with this one, right? And so there's already been, it's more work for me, but this is important. I think it's helpful for our students. And it's definitely going to be more effective with a cyclical schedule and just helping students figure out the real world. Docking stations has been something that I've kind of been talking about, where instead of replacing desktops, I'm switching teachers over to their laptops and docking into their classrooms, and that's been pretty effective. That's been like, it's helped me avoid buying a bunch of desktops, which is kind of what it's doing right now, buying us time, and it's been working. The district Wi-Fi project has been happening for a year. It's been a while. It's been since before I got here. We're finally done. We have new Wi-Fi through the whole district. The security is better than it's ever been. There's a few gimmicks here and there, but overall our network is significantly better. We have a new 10 gig switch over the district office, and we're ready for as much internet as you can give us. So our infrastructure is finally up to that speed. Should have been a couple years ago. Server replacement, move, and upgrade. We've done a complete rebuild of the server infrastructure. It's still in the process of relocating and transitioning the actual servers to the new infrastructure. So both the old one and the new one will be in place. The old one will be storing backups coming from the new infrastructure that will host the actual devices. So totally switching up that. We've been cleaning up student information systems. I also mentioned the Genetech cardholder access audit, just cleaning up different credentials. And I got to thank the principals for that one because I just handed them a sheet of names. And yeah, we're just trying to hammer down on who has access into our buildings and just try to keep things secure. Security is definitely a goal right now. The GEMS Intercom grant is finally, we can call it done.
It's installed.
It's installed, it's there, it's really cool. We're one of the first schools in the country to actually have the DIA, which is just stands for Do It All, but it's a display intercom device that actually alerts teachers. Instead of sending a student down with a piece of paper, the office will be able to display notifications on a screen, send alerts. Teachers will have the opportunity to talk back to the office through it. And all of that was through the Securing Our Future Phase 2 grant that we were awarded. Okay. So the two remaining concerns that I really need, or I believe need to be addressed. Number one, the CVHS intercom. I mentioned it quite a few months ago, but it has just gotten worse. Speakers are failing. There's a ground loop. I took a look at it with Rick, our district electrician, and it's beyond repair. It's totally, the system is just not working and it's failing. And so this is something that I think is in the agenda later. I'm going to show some bids that I've gotten for a replacement on that, because that is a safety issue, right? If teachers can be alerted in the case of a lockdown or, I mean, in any situation, you know, having to like dial, there's workarounds, but none of them are sufficient for an emergency situation. And so I believe that's the #1 priority. Number 2, I'm really disappointed about this, but the Cyberdome fell through. I was going to try to get Boise State in, and they lost some funding, and I just wasn't going to fight that battle. But thankfully, E-Rate, if you know what E-Rate is, opened up a 3-year opportunity to fund not just network equipment, but cybersecurity equipment. So I'm going to try to get us in the bid there for endpoint protection and a couple other things. So that's kind of still on hold, but there's still a plan there. So I think from there we'll move on to the bids on the intercom. Is that okay? Or do I have to wait till the end? Okay.
This is not an action, I guess like action.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, so
We'll
that's,
come back.
we'll come back to it. That's the end of the technology report. Any questions for today?
For the kids, like having the issues, the little things, are you, like, is there like a 5-minute Mr. Stevens thing that can go on in like the computer classes? Or are you looking at like a sophomore that could be trained? Like, we used to have a kid at every level that was trained to do that stuff.
We talked about that today. We did. I would love to see. In my head, I was thinking student help desks, but that's
Yeah.
a little big. I think your Ms. Holthouse's idea was a little better, which was kind of what you're saying, just to have a student, maybe a TA, who helps in the technology area at 1 hour of the day or something.
Yeah, we used to like double it up instead of like just having office aides or whatever. That would be a job that they could go to for like 2 hours a day, and then it would be like a junior and a sophomore.
Yeah.
And then they would just train the next person below them.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we used to do that. So that would be,
I think it would be awesome. Yeah, there's plenty of work that could be done by a student like that, and I'm happy to delegate some of that stuff to them. I just feel like I haven't had the steam to even figure out how to make that happen, but if I can get on the same page with some of the
you
principals.
could work with some of the computer teachers.
Yeah, that too. I would love to see something like that happen. And like I said, if nothing else, like a documentation strategy where they can note down what the issue is, when it happened, who's the owner of the device, what those things, so that I'm not having to juggle all that as well as fixing it. And then, yeah, maybe even getting them into fixing some of the devices.
Yeah, or if there's like 10 problems you always have that you're just constantly doing.
Right, yeah.
If you could just go to the computer teacher and be like, these are the 10 things, can you teach these in your class? So I'm not having to
Yeah.
do that. Just things like
I'll work on that for sure. Great.
All right, financial report.
So I feel like I've been a little quiet with my actual paper report, and Superintendent Holthouse and I had a good discussion about it, and I'm still gonna come back with the packet that you guys were like used to last year, but we decided it's probably more valuable to do it maybe like 4 or 3 times a year, because every month it's just like, don't get me wrong, the numbers change, but it just makes more of an impact with a quarterly or every third of the year statement. And so I'm going to do that November, March, and July. I think those are good time frames for that. But as, again, Superintendent Holthouse mentioned, this last month has just been learning a lot about the deconsolidation. And so I've been pretty involved in that, and then also wrapping up all of last year's items. Like last board meeting, you guys approved the audit, and so after that, there's just a lot of state reports to do with submitting, and so I got those all done. We just submitted our first IC report of the school year, and so IC is Idaho State Education of Excellence, and that's our reporting. that we do for all of like our teachers' credentials and our students, their demographics, their attendance, all the courses they're enrolled in. And it gives us about 90% of our funding for the year. So that's another thing I've been just hitting hard this last month. But so no physical report this month, but it'll come next month.
Great. All right, moving on to action items. Deconsolidation plan. And we read the emails probably.
If you haven't read the emails, please be sure and see those. So there's an email there from Sarah Doherty, am I saying that right? I'm just gonna butcher people's names and I apologize. Susan Borowitz, Ron Tao, Lennis Tao, Caitlin Tao, and Lisa Lorfing, and with their opinions about the deconsolidation. Those are in your packets. Please be sure and see those. The deconsolidation plan, printed form, we've made the decision to make it available electronically because the printed form is back, front and back, very lengthy. I think it's 100 and, Carly, do you know?
Oh, I thought it was 95
Oh, it's 95 pages. So it's 95 pages. So we're not going to make print copies available. It is available on our website. It's under the tab board. Thank you. It's under the tab Board of Trustees and then draft deconsolidation plan. It remains draft. The board is going to take, so the process for this, and we'll talk about the plan itself in just a minute, but the process is tonight they will take action and say, all right, let's move forward with this plan and have our public hearing. So we'll have our first public hearing tonight at Elk City on Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock, and then at Clearwater Valley Elementary on Wednesday evening at 6, high school. Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. And so then after that third hearing, then the board comes back together and says, let's approve this as is, or let's approve it with these amendments based on those public hearings. So that is here, and and I'm going to run through the plan with you shortly, and then you guys can discuss it. So, the priority of the plan are the best interests of students. That's always the priority of the Board of Trustees. In developing a plan, and I've been openly calling it, I mean, it's like a divorce. It really is. I say I'm going through the big D, and I don't mean Dallas. Because we're separating and it's tough. And I want to acknowledge right now that this will have ramifications and implications for students, it will for patrons, and it will for our employees. I hope to guide you, and I hope that you make the best decisions, but there's always an impact. There's always somebody who's impacted by any separation, whether it's a divorce or a division of a school district. In trying to make sure that we focus on the best interest of the school district, there were two priorities that we wanted to make sure that the plan included. We want to include that Elk City students, regardless of where Elk City is assigned in the new district, that Elk City students will always have the right to enroll in either of the districts. And that is outlined currently in the plan. In Idaho, we have open enrollment, but open enrollment has some qualifying factors for that, but the plan currently says Elk City students will have the right to enroll in either district based on parent choice, regardless of those qualifying factors. So,
in all honesty, any student could go to anywhere.
In Idaho, any student can open enroll to any district. However, there are qualifying factors. There are things like if you have a program that's overfull, the receiving district doesn't have to take. With Elk City, it's 15 students. No, it's not going to be a problem with an overfull program. So if we happen to have an overfull program, then we could still say we can fit Elk City in either building.
Can I
It's going to be
point
fun.
something kind of odd out? So new this year, per Idaho code, we have to post our open enrollment. And so under Connect and Documents and District, I have open enrollment. And so this was as of 10/1. And so it shows what we have available per, Idaho code says we have to post this, but we have a policy that shows how many students we accept per grade level. And so you can see at CV Elementary, we have no availability in that one. But in 5th grade, we have 6 spots open, and then as you can see down here, it's our special education portion, and we are full for a special education cases.
So that's why there's that portion in there saying Elk City gets to pick their school regardless of this.
Regardless, so we're gonna put that in our.
That is currently in this draft
Okay.
plan that we're discussing tonight.
And so there's students from Grangeville that live in Grangeville and go to Kuski and vice versa. How will those
So
be
that's the next
grandfathered?
good question.
All right,
This is like
keep
it was a
going.
feed. It's like you did
There
that
we
on
go.
purpose. So the next portion, that is not in the plan, in this draft plan that's been posted, but it is it's on the draft on my desk to get uploaded tomorrow or Monday, hopefully. And I would encourage that you include that any students that are currently in one of the two. So if they're living in Kuski going to school in Grangeville, or if they're currently living in Grangeville going to school in Kuski, that they get to remain in the district through their career. So if that family moves away and a new family moves into that household, no. But if they're currently enrolled, we keep them where they are. Because we already have them in our system. In Idaho, the next part of that law, that open meeting, or that open enrollment law, is that once they're in your district 3 years, they're yours. And so they've been in our district. We want to keep them. We want keep them where they are comfortable, keep them where they feel good. And so Elk City could pick and choose for forever. But those kids who are currently on an open enrollment between the two districts could just stay there through their career.
Okay.
Okay. Questions about that? Okay. Further, as we developed the plan, we wanted to make sure that we were supporting the best interests of the patrons. And so the development of the property values that we'll get to in just a minute, in separating those, the real property separations, making sure that our staff remains as whole as possible and in place. We tried to make sure that we took that into account as well. There are a number of Idaho codes that dictate a deconsolidation. They are in the plan with a little bit of a note underneath of those, but there's things like naming and numbering. When I said I had to learn, I was like, I didn't know how schools got numbers. I've been doing this education thing for a long, long time. I didn't know how that worked, but it's by county. And so all of the 240s belong to Idaho County, and the numbers that are available are 245 to 249. And so, and then of course they asked me to keep any district names in alphabetical order as much as possible within that numbering system. And then 33306 are the boundaries of school districts, 3310 consolidation, which seems funny in a deconsolidation plan, but the directions in 3312, I'm skipping to that for a division of school, says that we have to follow all the rules that come with the consolidation as well. And so that's the mapping and the trustee zones. And then, so 3311 is plan for consolidation submitted to electors. That's the fact that we have to vote. And a clarification on that, because I've had some inaccuracies out in the public when I've talked to people. It's a two-prong election. The first prong is that all trustees in all voters in Mountain View School District has to pass it. So it has to be a majority, just a simple majority, of all of the voters in Mountain View School District. And then the second prong is that a majority of the voters in the smaller of the two new districts. So whatever is outlined as the other district, that is likely to be Clearwater Valley, it's a little bit smaller, so they would have to pass it there as well. So there's two prongs, the whole district and then the smaller of the two new districts. And by the way, in this code, you can only divide in two, you can't divide into three. And then trustee zones, there has to be 5 trustee zones in all new districts. And then notice requirements is there has to be an election, because the steps for this is that the Board of Trustees approves, the local Board of Trustees approves a plan, it goes to the State Department of Education, and then the State Board of Education. If they approve it, that just means that it then goes to the patrons for a vote. So timeline, that's coming up. I'll go over timeline in just a minute. I don't want to get off my track here. And then, so Clearwater Valley, the Clearwater Valley 245 school district, so Clearwater Valley School District 245, would include the communities of Kuski, Stites, Harpster, Clearwater, Elk City. There may be some other communities that I left out, but that area. And there's a map in the plan, if you go to our plan and look at it. And then the Grangeville School District 244 would include the communities of Grangeville, Fenn, Mount Idaho, White. And again, there's a map in that we'll take you to look at it if you want to see that. Carly, you're such a good Vanna.
I'm trying. Should've got it pulled up ready.
And then in each of these districts, there are trustee zones. The county is suggesting that we keep those precincts as our trustee zones because precincts are known to the patrons and it wouldn't be a big change. They know where they go to vote, they recognize their areas, and so that would be a good way to keep there from being too much confusion about those new areas. Going through this, proposal for the Division of Finance. Okay, so taxable market value. Mountain View School District. I don't know why I didn't put this in my outline. The total for Mountain View School District. The total for Mountain View School District is $1 billion. This is taxable market value. $1,625,867,816 of taxable market value in the entire district. When you divide it, on the proposed lines that we currently have based on this map, the Clearwater Valley taxable value would be $706,077,647, and then Grangeville would be $919,790,169.
And notice, like on that map, if you really want to know information about the two districts, get on that map and just start clicking around.
Yeah,
You can see a lot of information.
There are layers and layers of information there, so spend some time on that. And then additionally, so that is 43.43% Mountain View School District. Of taking Mountain View School District, 43.43% would be Clearwater Valley, and 56.57 would be Grangeville.
Just a quick question. Have you been able to look at the average income between the districts or the proposed districts?
I've been looking around and asking about that information. I haven't had anybody who was able to give it to me. I reached out to the Economic Council, the Clearwater Economic Council. I didn't get a response back.
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody at the state could provide that or through the
resources.
tax.
I've reached out to the resources I know. I'll continue to see if I can find anything.
Yeah, might talk to Cindy Carlson.
I didn't ask her. Okay. And then, where was I going here? Average daily attendance. So average daily attendance really isn't about how many kids are there every day, or that you want your kids to be at school 90% of the time. It's how many kids we typically have in the school over the best 6 weeks? 28 weeks. The best 28 weeks. And so Clearwater Valley typically, in that proposed region, have 297 kids at school over the best 28 weeks, which is 28.5% of the entire district. And Grangeville has 747 students, which is 71.5% of the district. And so this chart right here is very helpful for people. You're going to want to look at that. Estimated enrollments. Clearwater Valley Junior Senior High would be 170 students. Clearwater Valley Elementary, 117 students. Elk City Elementary, 13 students. Grangeville High School, 253 students. And Grangeville Elementary Middle School, 509 students. Unit calculations. Carly, I might follow you for help here, but unit calculations are based on the teachers you have and the students you have and the grade levels that they're in, and it's a relatively complex unit formula that's there. But support units is how we get our funding from the state. And Mountain View School District currently has 65.02 funding units, support units that we get from the state. And in this division, 21.43 of those would be Clearwater Valley, and 43.59 would be Grangeville. And that is in this, the Clearwater Valley and the Grangeville are broken out into two different graphs, two different charts here, so you can look at those support units. Because there are some things in that formula, it's a very complex formula. So for instance, if you have an elementary school that's more than 40 miles from your 20, I'd have to look it up. But if you have a remote elementary school, you get a chunk of extra money for that. And so the Clearwater School District would get additional funds because they have an elementary school that's remote from their district office.
How much is that?
Well, you get an extra support unit,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And then based on the enrollment of your high school, you get a different amount of support units. And so that's what comes into this calculation, that's 21.43 for Clearwater Valley and 43.59 for Grangeville.
So right now, as Mountain View School District 244, when we look at the administrative units and exceptional child units, those are all Grangeville, because Grangeville is connected to, in essence, mileage-wise, the district office. Whereas Clearwater Valley and Elk City are that like 24, 25 miles away from the district office. They consider them separate or alternative units. And so instead of being lumped in with Grangeville and having a higher divisor, they're lower, or they're farther away, and so we get a lower divisor or this minimum amount. And so that's why when we go and separate them to the proposed districts, this up here would be CV because it's connected, it would be connected to the new district office, and then Elk City would be the separate one, and then Grangeville would just again be by itself, and there are no separate units, if that helps.
Thank you. Okay, and then salary apportionment. We, from the state of Idaho, we get Mountain View School District gets $5,346,081, or excuse me, $346,811. Dividing that into the planned Clearwater Valley school, they would get $1,833,941, and Grangeville would get $3,521,671. $521,671. So in addition, it will cost the division, will cost the state of Idaho an additional $8,000. So it means $8,000 in tax dollars would come back to our communities with this separation of plan.
So you're saying with the separation, the support units that fund the schools, CV would, currently they have 21.37 and they would have 21.43. Right? If I'm looking at page 19, that's where we're at now with CV being the bottom, and I added those 5 up on the right and got 21.37. So those are the support units we're getting right now for CV. If you go to page 20, that's the proposed Clearwater Valley, it's 21.43. So they're getting the same support units from the state.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you see, for the salary-based apportionment, this additional FTE
What
as
page
per
is that?
Idaho code, this is page 22.
Okay.
So current Mountain View 244 district gets an additional 2 because of those 2 separate locations. And so if you go down to CV's proposed district, it gets an additional 1.5. One for Elk City being separate, but another half because they're under 40 support units.
Okay, so that's on page 23.
Yep.
And they get an additional, that's what D is on
Yes.
23. The additional FTE, full-time employee. Okay, and that's because why?
So the extra 1 is for Elk City being separate.
Okay.
And the extra half is because they're under 40 support units.
Okay.
If they, by chance, the proposed district got under 20, then it'd be an additional 1.
Okay.
Just it for knowledge. But so then if we scroll down to page 25, the proposed Grangeville district has an additional 0 because they don't have a separate one and they're over 40 support units.
Okay.
And then the division of assets, real property, so that's our textbooks, transportation vehicles, service vehicles, technology, district office furniture and equipment, consumable, and liquid assets. So that's all of those things. The proposal is that Clearwater Valley assets remain in Clearwater Valley. All their desks remain there, their books remain there, all those things remain there. Grangeville things stay in Grangeville, however, any of those shared things. We talked about, we have 3 vehicles that are shared vehicles in the district, and we're proposing that that is divided based on the ADA, which is average daily attendance, so 28.5%. So one vehicle would go to Clearwater Valley, 2 of them would stay in Grangeville. All of those shared items would be separated out in that manner. And then division of liability, that's funny because the liability is personnel in a school. In a school, that's what costs money, is your personnel. And so again, the proposal has that Clearwater Valley staff stay in Clearwater Valley, Grangeville staff stay in Grangeville, with the exception of some shared staff, for instance, the superintendent. And so, but that's going to be a little bit more difficult because they're going to need, the Clearwater Valley district might have different needs than the Grangeville district based on attendance, based on how many kids you have. So they may not need an entire superintendent. They may need a half superintendent, half principal, or something like that. So the recommendation is where they can be dispersed by 28, they'd be dispersed following ADA. Where they can't be, the new boards of trustees, because there would be a new board of trustees and a new board of trustees for both districts, they would make those decisions about staffing and then take the staff that we currently have and divide those staff appropriately, making sure that they have the certifications and even their will that they want to work in that district or not. Okay, so lots of things there, and then really the big key here is that timeline, and this is important. I started on this a little bit earlier. So in November, if the Board of Trustees, you decide on a plan next week, Wednesday, whatever plan you finalize, and if you propose to move it forward, it gets sent to the State Department of Education, it gets sent to the State Board of Education. They meet in November, and they would look at it, and they would give it approval. Approval just simply means, okay, you guys can take this to your voters. It isn't, this is done deal, it's, okay, you're allowed to take this to your voters. And then the voters would make the decision in May, and again, those 2 prongs, of the threshold for the Mountain View School District of 50% of majority, simple majority, and the threshold, based on this plan, it would be on Clearwater Valley. The threshold would be a simple majority there as well. So there's 2 prongs in that election, and then if it passes,
finish your thought.
if it were to pass both, if it meets both prongs, and it has to be both, then the deconsolidation would move forward, and this plan has the deconsolidation in July of 26. So next school year, that whole year would be you'd actually have 2 sets of trustees, and then they would together work as a joint trustees. So they'd make, the 10 of them would make the decisions for all things finishing up Mountain View School District. And then 5 trustees from Clearwater Valley would make all decisions about the upcoming Clearwater Valley. They'd hire their new superintendent, their business manager, those kinds of things. The 5 from Grangeville would make those decisions. At one point, that was set on July 1st of 2025. And then a number of people were in my office, and we had this whole brainstorm about how is this going to impact, and we really wanted to focus that on kids. What is the impact going to be on kids here, the best date for that? And things like, we have Skyward, that is our student information database. It's expensive. It's what we need for a district of this size, but it might not be what the 2 new districts need, and that's going to be an expense to go out and, not an expense, but a decision to go out and run that for bid and make a decision about the best fiscal decision there. So my recommendation is you need that year. I think it also fits with a lot of things. You're going to be looking for a new superintendent. You could hire that superintendent who could come on and help guide the board through that, and then the trustees would just have 1 superintendent to hire the next year for either Clearwater or Grangeville, whichever that other superintendent isn't going to go to. So there's a ton of things there. If you want to chat about them, Carly and I can probably resurrect the list for you.
I realize I'm probably asking you to guesstimate, but do we have any sense of what the state is looking at, or are they just there kind of pro forma to make sure we're in compliance with the law? What discretion do they have, and what's that based on?
So one of the things that I did was submit this plan to our attorney, and asked him to make sure, because the language for the ballot and stuff is at the end of this plan, and I asked him to make sure that we had met all code, all Idaho code.
Mm-hmm.
And he replied back that this current plan meets all of the code in Idaho and is appropriate to move forward. Do I have a sense of what the State Board of Education is going to do?
Well, not really what they're going to do. What do they base their decision on? Is it like I say, is it pro forma? Yep, legally it's good, let them decide, or do they say, here's our criteria, you missed one, therefore it comes back?
The
Well, how do we know?
criteria are set forth in those policies that I listed.
Okay.
If it meets all of the criteria in that policy, then it's the voters that will make the decision. And
Okay.
I really believe they believe in the voters.
Okay.
So they're going to hold you to the threshold of meet the law, and then let your voters make the decision.
Okay, and so far so good on that point then, that we're on track. Good? All right.
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
Has there been any effort to generate an estimated, cost of, profit and loss type thing? It's a statement of, income versus expenses with the split that's being, considered.
Yes, so the cost is that where I spoke about the liabilities, that is.
Right.
Okay, and then the other
Okay, that's in the
costs would
liability.
be continuing costs that we have and in making
Okay.
those choices. So our student information system, technology, Michael, I just wait to come into the office to see if I can light his world up by saying things like, we're gonna have to need new email addresses for everybody in the district.
Yeah.
And so, one of the reasons of having that one of the reasons for having that year is I believe having that year will help us to keep those costs. So for food service, for instance, I reached out to them, they're willing to serve both districts and continue on with providing a bid for us. And so having that year will help us to leverage keeping those costs as close to the same as possible.
Well, again, yeah, just thinking about the potential revenue streams versus the potential operational costs and, so forth.
It's hard to predict too, because
26, that's where I missed it. Okay.
it's hard to predict too, because you
Oh,
are
sure.
gonna assign new tasks, like
It's an estimated
we have
thing.
a superintendent that looks over the entire district, and now you're gonna
Yeah.
have two superintendents.
It's, right, and it's an
And you
estimated
may
thing.
add,
Yeah.
who knows, other job duties to that new superintendent position or
Sure.
whatever, because now there's smaller districts that are easier to manage. It's hard to predict all that
Yeah, a
stuff.
lot of, that's, yeah. But I'm just thinking, at this point where it's being considered by the different areas that are involved, it would be potentially of value for them to be able to look at, all right, this is what we would estimate. For example, what are the maintenance costs? What's the maintenance cost for the buildings and so forth?
The maintenance costs should remain the same.
Yeah, but how does that break out between the new proposed district and, the existing proposed district and because it's gonna be different. The cost that it takes to maintain the high school here, is gonna be different than the cost to maintain the high school in Kuski. But, I don't know what general conditions are. Is that something we could expect to be higher down there because it's an older building? I'm just laying out questions.
Well, Ty's 10-year plan, is that online?
Yep.
Okay.
Just questions that, if I were sitting out there in the audience, these are things that I would be curious about.
I agree, and and honestly, it's been a couple of nights of being awake because things dawned on me in the middle of the night. For instance, I'm going to use a truck. Maintenance needs to put tools on the back of their truck or their pickup, and then they need to have them be weather protected because
Sure.
we don't want to haul them a distance and have it rain on them or snow or whatever. So we had one vehicle that was failing completely and breaking down at various locations, so we had to replace it. When we replaced that in the vehicle that we were lucky enough to find had a toolbox on it. And we were like, whoa, that'd be awesome if we could get another toolbox, like another one, and do another truck. And then I was like, wait. We got to think about moving forward in this plan and our deconsolidation and making sure that we're equitable in those plans. So it has been a driving force in the office. I don't see so far I'll be awake a lot more nights, because I'm going through the big D, and I don't mean Dallas. I don't see any big out of balances, and I think having the year to leverage,
yeah.
making sure that we keep them equitable, we should be okay.
Okay.
It might be dependent a lot on the new school boards too, and the
Sure.
decision they make about their district.
Sure.
Like most of my stuff, there are free alternatives that may not be quite as effective, but if the new district says, hey, we don't wanna put money, that we just wanna use a local ISP, a local ISP is gonna be free and something like
Sure.
that. They'll
Those
have
are,
a lot of
yeah,
power.
again, those will be questions that will come up later on, but as we go into these, the meeting later tonight and next week, you know, these are things that I would think people would be curious about too, you know, okay, yeah, just, you know, okay, this is great, we're gonna have our own little area out here in, you know, the valley out here, but, golly gee, that building, needs to be destroyed and, replaced, you know. Not that that's the case, but, you know, things like that could be hanging out there as just a huge factor.
Do you have Rich vouchers online? That would be a good thing to look at. I don't think we have. So I was just thinking, Dr. Rich Boucher came and did that VCEF of the evaluation of the buildings.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing to
That would be a
to
good,
include
yeah,
in this.
to look at between the two, and, yeah, yeah, really good way.
Good thinking, thank you.
Did we ever get his updated report?
Yes.
Cool.
Got it in color.
Hmm?
It was in color.
Good.
Did you need a motion to approve this draft? We do have to have
That's
a
a
motion
prayer.
to, before we go on, if you're ready for that, we do, well, again, that process is, you're approving a draft tonight. You had you'll have your public hearing tonight, next week Tuesday, next week Wednesday. Wednesday night, you'll approve your final draft.
Is that it? We're
I
done?
think I went through my long list, there was a lot.
I
Any more
move that
discussion?
we, oh, sorry.
No.
I move
Motion?
that we approve this draft as presented.
A second.
Second?
Yeah, a second. Good job.
Any
Maybe
further
just-
discussion beyond that?
Fix the typo on page 9.
Page which?
9. 33-3109. Harpster.
Page
On
number?
page 9?
What about hamster?
Page
Come on.
9.
It's the bottom line.
Bottom line,
On page 9?
There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
hamsters.
there's no hamster.
Comma
Right.
item.
Oh.
Sure is. Come on, you knew that.
Harpster.
Very good.
No wonder that spell check didn't catch that.
Oh.
I like that.
We good?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Aye. All right. Moving on to Land and Water Conservation Fund, tennis courts.
Oh, this is a fun little thing I learned. So I got a call from, like a recreation district, or they're connected with, like Parks and Rec, basically. So years and years ago, back when we even were still with Salmon River, we had a grant that put a tennis court in Riggins and Whitebird and Elk City. And so they called and they were like, how are our tennis courts? And I went, what? And so they acknowledged that Salmon River was its own school district, and apparently they already had the paperwork that made Riggins like the overseer of that tennis court, but they were asking about the Whitebird one, and I was like, well, we don't have the Whitebird school anymore, and so now it is officially with the Whitebird Area Recreation District. And so it's just a piece of paper that acknowledges that our board says we're not overseers of that one, and now for Mountain View School District, it's just the Elk City tennis court.
I move that we acknowledge that we are not the overseers of the tennis courts at Elk City anymore.
Is it
The
Whitebird?
Whitebird.
Whitebird.
Sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving on. approval of water fountain with small pond feature. Do we have people talking?
Doesn't look like it.
Small pond feature?
Yeah, so
Nobody
Mary
speak
put
on
in
that.
a grant
So we
last
can
year
do a no
to
action if we want to.
put this in.
So yes, I guess I can hop in since they weren't there, I'm not here. Mary Charlie wrote a grant last year, it was funded, it's to put in a water fountain at, Clearwater Valley High School. Great, it was completely funded, however, whenever you make upgrades to facilities, that needs to be board approved because you're taking on that maintenance of it and the fact that it's on your school grounds. So we ask that you approve this so that they can move forward with the development of that water fountain.
I move that we approve the water fountain with small pond feature at CHS.
Excited to see
Second.
it.
I'd like to discuss that. I would actually,
Can I ask who seconded?
Tyler did, right?
I
No.
need it,
Oh.
can you please, I second?
I second.
Thank you.
John seconds. I do want to discuss that though, because I would like them to speak on that personally, before we approve it, just because of the maintenance issue moving forward.
How
A
big is
water
it?
fountain that may freeze in the winter and crack and do all kinds of stuff.
Oh, is it outside?
Is it right? Is it outside?
It's a pond and water feature. I have not seen where they plan to have it.
So
I
I'm
just found
assuming
out
it's
about
not as
It
big
says in
as you
front of our school.
think it is.
Well, it may be fine. It may be
But,
fine.
It's a fair question.
yeah, that is a good question.
Yeah. Table.
Do you want to table this, or do we want to?
You already have a motion on the table.
Is Vinny
So
Okay,
you
well,
need to
that's
call
my
for-
discussion. I can call for a vote.
Call for a vote, and then if it fails, then you can ask for
Yeah,
another vote.
maybe you could just ask for more explanation.
Vinny's, it says Vinny would be here.
I personally would like them to speak on it.
I think it's a good idea.
All in favor of moving forward to?
Well, I can guarantee that they're not gonna have it built before winter snow's already here.
Yeah.
Saw it today.
So we could probably postpone it and be up just fine.
Yeah.
Unless you guys are.
I'm sure they
I'll
want
call
to
for-
get to digging though before the ground freezes, I would imagine.
Well, why do that if we're not gonna put it in right away?
Call for a vote. All in favor of approving this?
How do we say put this on the table until?
You say
Can't do
nay.
that.
Just
Okay,
say
we'll
nay.
just put it on nay, yeah.
Just nay.
Nay. I move that we postpone this till next.
Okay, so,
No,
well,
we have to-
you
You're gonna
need to
have
back up. I have a
modify,
motion on
yeah.
the table. Everybody needs to vote.
Oh, I thought everybody said nay.
I haven't, but
Oh,
I will.
Nay.
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 I'll abstain.
Okay.
I'll say nay.
There you go.
Do we have another motion?
I move that we postpone this item. Approval of water fountain with small pond feature to next meeting.
Until we can present.
Do we have a second?
Next general meeting.
John seconds.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to make one other comment. I would like to see what the plans would be for putting this in, you know, as soon as possible. I do have a little experience with water.
That's true. We have an expert in that. Moving on to approval of bid. Oh, back to you.
So, yeah, I reached out to 3 separate vendors. The first one just recently installed the GEMS intercom system. The second one has done installations for us in the past. They're local out of the Boise area. And the third is CompuNet, who's done a lot of work for us before. First one is a very simple solution. Calling 2 speakers, and then potentially a talkback button where teachers could call back to the office. The second one is IP speakers, but this would also include a on-premise server device that if the internet went out to like the Clearwater Valley schools, it would host the devices and they'd still be able to inwardly call and communicate with each other in the case of an internet outage. That's a big benefit at CB because we have outages pretty regularly. They also offer 24/7 support in that price point, and additionally gave me, they also presented the idea of potentially hosting our phones on that offline server as well, included in that cost. So these guys were super motivated to do what's going to fit our needs. They're also local, and they're definitely my choice at the moment. And CompuNet, I'm waiting for exact numbers. They're really busy right now, and I don't think they'll be able to get it done at the rate which this project kind of requires.
So K12.tech is local?
If you call Boise local,
Better to see it.
Yeah.
G2's out of Colorado, so that kind of gives you a perspective.
This question actually occurred to me with respect to number one, and that is, does the system allow, say the office and a teacher in a given classroom are communicating, and for some reason the teacher's not able to push that button? Does, worst case scenario, does the system allow for hearing what's going on in the room?
Absolutely. Every
Do all
system
three then allow for
would
what's
allow
going
the
on?
office to listen.
They can just open that independently without any interaction from the classroom?
Yes.
That's a big deal, okay.
Actually, the K-12 tech system would provide that in every room, whereas G2 would not be able to do that in the main areas like cafeteria, gym, shop.
Oh, really?
Yes, because K-12 would put internet speakers everywhere, whereas G2 would do what's called a hybrid system.
Okay.
Are you just forced?
No, okay. Did you look at DIA for this as well?
So I told these guys I don't want to go over 40 grand. I told them that was I don't want to spend. Yeah, right. If I told them 30, it would have been.
Do you have 40 grand? Do you?
Think we're
is
the
there,
feds
why
or
that
something.
number?
I talked to Vinny and I said, this is how I just wrote out a bunch of stuff. Here's how many speakers you need. Here's how many horns. Here's how much I would charge for installation. And I said, here it is. It was like 37. I said, let's tell them 40 and see how they do. And this is what we got. So that was just because this is what I think it would take to get you an intercom, to get one fast. These guys, K-12 is willing to install this on nights and have this done for us before winter break. G2, they don't have it for sure, but they said they'd work to either work over breaks like Thanksgiving and Christmas break to have it done by the new year. Whereas if we implement DIAs, the DIAs we have in our schools are literally manufactured for our schools. It's like they built them in China, shipped them to us. It's a little bit of a process, and they cost over $1,200 each. So it would cost us an additional numbers. You're fine. Probably about 30,000.
So for Mr. Stevens to put it in himself, he's saying he could do it for about 27,000, that's right, correct? 37,000. So that's why they set that threshold at about 40,000. And the funds for this would come out of our, what's that title of that? School modernization funds, the new funds that are coming, which fits into our deconsolidation plan because we're wanting to make sure that we have our buildings as comparable as we can have them.
Sure,
You know.
absolutely.
Did I hear someone suggest that you maybe suggested that you could do this job for us? Somebody else brought it up.
Oh, well, all things are possible.
You're a
with God.
young dad. Do not commit your nights and weekends and holidays.
That's right.
Do not do it.
Yeah.
Remember, we want to have a maintenance,
There's this word like, it's no.
If
No.
you're asking if it's possible, I
You did
absolutely
good
have
work,
to,
man, that's why I'm bringing it up.
I
know you.
absolutely have the know-how to accomplish the tasks required. I don't have the time. I would end up having to pay someone to do my job.
Okay.
To do, you know what I mean?
Good enough.
And if G2, but honestly, all of them, if they do it, they're going to be committed to the support. So the week after it's installed and one of the speakers fails, it's not on me. Hey, what'd you guys do? They come back and they fix it. And so that's the other benefit there.
And
So
did I
it's
hear you
hard.
recommend anything?
Do I like a vendor?
Yeah.
First,
It's hard when CompuNet hasn't given the number either. I mean, it's nice that CompuNet's local in Grangeville.
Mhm.
So if there's problems, you know, they're here, but they didn't give us a number. And then you got K-12 out of Boise, so that's an 8-hour drive to fix something. But what would we just don't know.
Yeah.
Is it that bad that we need to make a decision tonight?
It's non-functioning, and we wanna try to get a contract to them and get it done over like Thanksgiving.
What's your
I
sense
also
that they're gonna
worry
come in
that
under 40?
Kuski will not
If-
be happy
if,
that they didn't get the same system that Grangeville received.
Well, you see, Grangeville's a grant. That's the
Okay.
challenge. If
That
we
was-
got a
that was
grant,
it.
I would 100% load that up. The problem is we don't have that funding. We could, and we don't really have the luxury of waiting
Okay.
for a grant to come around. But here's the thing, if you go with really any of these, yeah.
If
you
they
go
did
with-
write a grant later on, you could add the
to
Dias?
this. You could add
Okay.
Dias, you could add the talkback buttons, you could add,
Okay.
because I'm having them, at least K-12 Tech, but both, I'm having them do IP speakers. You can take those internet devices and branch out into, basically whatever you want in the future.
So now,
Okay.
like, the K-12 one, that's still like you go up and press the button on the wall and it goes to the motherboard and the...
If we wanted to do that, and if Vinny, if Vinny felt like that was gonna be really helpful, the additional cost to do that with them was about $3,000. So that it's not a huge investment to go there, if we wanna do talkback buttons with them. I put the money towards that offline server, because I felt like that was where it was.
Well, I, like me personally, I would want the talkback version of it.
And if we're talking $3,000, but do we have,
But do we have the option to not go with the lowest bid at our discretion?
And you're thinking
I do believe so.
that-
Yes, you do.
If-
I'm sorry,
if we wanted,
wasn't answering out loud, my head was shaking, my mouth wasn't working.
If you wanted a potential workaround for this, we could go with one of these, and then I could have them add the buttons on as a second project later. Is that
I mean, in all actuality, you have to have 3 bids, correct?
Not at this rate.
Not at this, after 50,000.
After, it's actually, that's.
75,000, I went up to
That's a
75,000.
reviewing-
we're talking
That's a
about.
reviewing policy, tonight it is 75,000.
Yes, it actually went up to 75,000, okay. It was 50,000 and now it's 75,000.
so when would Compunet get us the bid, and when would they, I mean, like, is it even an option? It's kinda hard to include them when
Yeah.
there's no,
Yeah, I honestly, I put them up there because, I had to reach out to 3 vendors. My suspicion is that theirs will be significantly more than 40, and their timeline will be
Later.
probably the summer. That's just an assessment. I don't wanna, all I know is that the GEMS intercom, they were like 2 years out, and it was probably 2 years out, and it costed,
We got that bid for like over 300.
it was almost
yeah,
double.
it's like,
Yeah, I remember
yeah,
It was
okay.
almost double what G2 did us.
Well, I'd like your recommendation, I mean,
to-
obviously, we kinda have just the one.
Yeah, yeah.
But-
I love G2, they've done a great job, but I really want to see what K-12 can offer us, because the offline comms, as well as the VoIP integration, could become extremely valuable if the districts separate.
And who did the DIA?
That was G2. Yeah. And K-12 Tech would not have the option to do that, to go with the Dias. They have not, I mean, the Dias are very, only 2 companies currently manufacture those, Algo and G2.
But if we went with K-12 now, we could hire G2 later to add the DIAs to that system?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. Better not say for sure, because it would require some. Yeah, we'd have to do some work on it.
So if we go with G2, we can do the DIAs later,
Mm-hmm.
but they're in Colorado for support.
Yep.
K-12, we couldn't add the DIA, but there's voice over IP.
And do you have to pay for support on the G2?
No, they're just standard support. 7-minute ticket and they get back to you. And they're really good. They've been really good for me. Yeah, the other. Yeah.
So, like, just with the amount of outages that we have, even cell outages down there, our phones don't work.
All right, Michael, tell us the answer.
K-12. It's hard. It's a hard decision.
Yeah.
Like K-12.
With the amount of outages that we have in our,
He's our guy.
when the internet goes out, we don't have phones at school.
Additionally, when the CB district, or even the district as a whole, further down the road, K-12 could offer us our phone services for half the price we're paying right now. So it's just.
And have you worked with them before?
I have.
Okay.
They're actually. They've installed for other companies on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because some people that you don't work with, they like promise all these things and then they don't. So I just didn't want that to be the case either.
And I haven't had their services before, but they have installed products for me before.
Okay. Well, I move that we accept the K-12 tech bid with the $3,000 callback option. Is that okay, Carly?
I'll second that.
With the $3,000 callback?
Callback?
You wanna
Or
say
just
with
say
the-
with the callback?
With the upgrade.
With the callback?
With callback
The
upgrade?
added call, yeah.
Okay, with the callback upgrade? Okay.
We have a second?
I did it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Approval of surplus items.
So in February, you'll get a list of surplus items that, for a school, we can't just get rid of things, we have to put them up for a surplus bid auction. In February, you'll get a list of items that are small things like desks and tables and those kinds of things. Those sell well in the local bid process. It doesn't work for vehicles, we don't get the best price. So going to this other surplus, which is the what do we call it? Sorry, Carly. It's a more statewide surplus auction that if we list with them, we'll get better prices, we'll get a better return for those vehicles. So we have 2 Chevy Colorado pickups and a Dodge Dakota pickup that are aged out and no longer of service to the district.
We need a motion for that? You have a motion?
I motion that we approve the surplus items listed on the agenda.
I'll
You have a
second. Is it GSA?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have a second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approval of policies.
So we have quite a few here. First of all, I have to say the policy committee met and they're amazing and we're working out a really good procedure for going through these in an efficient manner. And thank you Trustee Dunn and Trustee Edwards for attending. And it was a little bumpy because we were learning the procedure, but I thought it was good movement. So in your board packet, and we will have to do an action, a motion and a vote on every one of these individually. The first one, and you will see those marked in red. This
You want
is
them individually?
they have to be.
We don't know.
Just the 7,000 and 8,000?
Really?
Yeah, you can do just one, because they're all just one policy, you can do
Okay.
one motion.
Yay,
Unless you
team.
have a change somewhere, then,
Nope,
yeah.
nope, that's fine. It's not what we did before, so. Alrighty, so
You're
the
okay with
changes.
that?
The changes, so the first one is 7,400 and all it did was bring it into compliance with what the state of Idaho now recognizes for those bid limits that we just talked about, for instance, with Michael. And then also added a few terms via Trustee Dunn to clarify some things. So by comparison and comparative. So the words in red are the changes from the former 7,400. And then 7,400P. P1, 7,400P1, again, is just a bit of clarification for the delivery of materials, and then termination for cause. We have to have a termination for cause because of our food services program. So just clarifying how you terminate a contract in our district, which is a good thing that we should have anywhere. And then, on page 3 of that same policy are all of the food services that we have to buy American. I love that, by the way. And then that we have to meet, debarment certifications, so you'll see policy, or sections A through E there are based on what our requirements are for the food services. And then, but I'm gonna point out on that one, our new practice is going to be at the end of every policy that has an acronym in it, to have an acronym library, so that you know what FSMC is, or so forth. Because, oh my goodness, we love some acronyms around here. And then, for 7400 P2 is procurement methods under federal awards. Those are things like all of those ESSER dollars that came through, so that we meet those requirements. And those are, again, just levels of acceptability and a couple of grammatical things. And then 7400 P3 didn't have any changes. That's just for you to review and give it a new update. And then 7400 P4, again, some grammatical changes, clarifying, for instance, when federal is capitalized and when it isn't, and bulleted items.
Did our FSMA have a chance to look at this as well?
Yes.
After we edited it?
Yes.
Okay. That's you. Just kidding.
I'm aware of
I
the
know.
changes. Charity and I have been working very close to keep the state agency happy.
Good. Thank you.
They say, we want this, and we basically make it happen, because we're not just in your district, we're all across the nation. We work closely with the state agencies.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then policy 8705, originally, I apologize. We looked at this in Elk City, if you will remember, in September, and then in October, we brought it for you, and I thought it was just an informational item. I failed to have you approve it. Trustee Dunn even asked me about it that day, and I said, no, we approved this in Elk City. And my bad, we did not approve this in Elk City, so it is the same policy. The only change from originally was that we added that pre-service drug testing. And then, a drug testing again, should there be an incident. And then, the form, the grantee application, I'm going to apologize, what was the change on?
We're just adding the bottom to document the approval process.
Oh, the approval
Yeah.
process, thank you, at
That's
the
all.
bottom of that policy, at that form.
Couple questions, if you don't mind.
Yes,
I'm just confused. This 7400 applies across the board to procurements, right? Not specific, just to food service.
All of the
it came up on here, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, all of 7400s
Yeah.
apply across the board
Across
for
the
all
board, okay.
purchases. We just had to have some additional language for food services.
Okey doke. I should have given you notice about this question. With respect to the current applicants that we have in the process, what's your thoughts on getting them notified and getting the approval of these updates, assuming they pass tonight?
The current, are you talking about, which ones are you talking about?
The 8 or 9 people?
8705? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
Those applicants
Mhm.
are all currently in the screening process, the
Right.
psychological eval. They're supposed to be scheduling those right now. Holy cow, that's a long evaluation.
Yeah.
And then the training is in November. And so based on that psychological eval and the training, when they complete that, then we can get them.
Okay, I guess I didn't ask the question correctly. Is how are they going to be notified about these changes to policy? I don't anticipate they're going to object.
I apologize.
But I think because we have a part on our application that says I've read the policy and all my questions have been answered.
I misunderstood what you're asking.
Yeah.
I will send them, if you approve them tonight, I will forward them the
Yeah.
policies tomorrow.
That's just fair.
Yes, it is, absolutely. Good point.
Cool. And thanks for your innovation on this policy committee business. I was a little skeptical. That's going to work out well.
I think so.
Yeah, I really think so.
I move that we accept the policies, series 7000 and 8000 as presented.
I'll second that. Or he can.
No, you can't.
You said it first, thank you very
I
much.
didn't say a word.
Eeny, meeny.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Informational items. superintendent search.
We're just gonna skip that.
So in your superintendent
Didn't
search.
hear that.
I'm just going to say, I want you to get the best superintendent that you can get, and in order to do that, you need to start early. The early bird gets the worm. And so, there is an article here about, it's from the Slate magazine, page 22 and 23, just items for you to consider in moving forward. I will, recommend that our November agenda has a decision point for you guys to do,
Yes.
to decide on November how you're going to move forward with looking for your new superintendent.
This is a tricky situation with possible deconsolidation and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that you would hire a superintendent for Mountain View School District, same expectations that you would give me because it's the same district. And then with the understanding and the clarity with that person that there's a possibility in May that there's a deconsolidation and the job description would change slightly. So maybe the new superintendent picks up some additional duties because they have lesser job as the superintendent in a smaller district.
What's the chance that somebody that has access to the Slate magazine can make a copy of those 2 pages and just email them?
I'll give
Okay.
Don't you get them?
I probably do. 'Cause I get some doggone much stuff.
Yeah.
I'll give it
It
to you.
gets lost.
I'll give it to you.
Is that most likely what we would do? Because you'd pay more for a superintendent over a larger district. And then if they split, that superintendent would choose where to go.
And what other role
And
to
we'd have to
possibly
say
take
either
on?
cut and pay or additional job duties.
Additional duties. It
Most
will
likely
make
additional
sense.
duties.
This job, the job that I am doing and the job that whoever does next year would be quite different than the superintendent of either Clearwater Valley 245 or Grangeville 246. And so you would just redesign those job duties to up them up enough so that pay would stay comparable.
Is there anything that says we can't have, since we currently have one person serving the same district in effect, that we would have if we split it? Is there anything that says we can't have one superintendent who serves both districts?
Some districts do that.
Yeah, I think we ought to look at that.
And business managers and
Right.
tech people.
And human resources, all those people.
Right, yeah, and teaching.
Yeah,
and
as a matter of
recruitment.
fact, for one of our maintenance people, I would make the recommendation that he remains an employee of Grangeville but contracts to
There
Clearwater
you go.
Valley because his specialized services are going to be needed in both districts.
Yeah.
So that's a good example.
Yep, it is.
Information. All right.
And then that last one is a card from Senator
Bird.
in response to your letter about funding, and then there was a letter that came from James Rucci, and it just says, thank you for your letter dated September 19, 2024, regarding the importance of reformulating the funding formula in Idaho's public schools. I appreciate the effort you are making to bring this vital issue to the front of the legislative priorities for the 2025 legislative session. I support your efforts and will lend my voice and efforts to the cause. Please continue to stay engaged on this issue and work to bring other school districts with you to that effort. It is only in solidarity with other like-minded legislators and school districts that we can succeed. So your letters are being noticed.
But we haven't heard from any of our representatives yet, right?
And I got response from Richard Thomas, is that what his name is? Richard Thomas, who works with Senator Scott Grow. I don't know if he represents
Or
ours.
he doesn't represent us.
Okay, forward that to me too.
I'm glad the word's getting out. Just like to see some traction.
Great. Well,
Half-hour lunch break.
I guess we're about done.
You can adjourn the meeting.
Just for clarification, we cannot begin the public hearing ahead of the posted time.
Right.
Half an hour.
Yep, you can adjourn your meeting and we can start.
We're good?
Good.
Meeting adjourned.
I don't know, there really wasn't an end time limit.